Grace, peace, and welcome to Podcast of the Wills, a podcast that treats Star Wars like a sacred text. My name is Nick Milkey, and it is Easter Sunday night. We're hanging out, we're making drinks, we're talking Star Wars, we're doing all the things that we love to do here at Podcast of the Wills, here with those of you that tune in and join us live. And for the audio listeners, I'm going to throw an apology out there up front. I was talking before we went live. I've gotten really into this live format. I really love doing this live stream on Sunday nights. And I still enjoy putting out the audio version on Mondays, downloading the audio, putting it out in the podcast feed. But I've realized in recent weeks that I'm doing a lot of visual stuff. So I'm going to try and keep that balance between not making it so visual that our audio listeners are getting lost. But if you are an audio listener, if you haven't joined us live on a Sunday night yet, we would love for you to do so. The videos are also available on YouTube. That's the beauty of the internet. Nothing ever goes away. So 100 years from now, my grandchildren are going to be like, oh yeah, here's my weird grandfather doing a Star Wars TV show on the internet from his garage. But it's fun. And that's why we're here tonight. We're here to hang out. We're here to have some fun. Normally we don't do news on Podcast of the Wills. There are a lot of other great shows that do news, that put out, stuff during the week, especially when Star Wars news breaks and they go live, right on the spot. I'm not a breaking news guy, but there was an inordinate amount of Star Wars news this week. And so I did want to talk about a couple of pieces of those news for a minute. And in the spirit of the Easter holiday, as it is now, I am so very fortunate to have a very special guest to join me for this news segment. So without further ado, I will bring in everybody's favorite space rabbit, Jackson.
Dateline 33 BBY. Lots of news happening today.
Get your papers here.
Yeah. This news update has been brought to you by Chesterfield's, the best space cigarette you could find.
They're great for pregnant women and parents alike.
Right. Death sticks? What do you mean death sticks? No, don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
Death sticks by Chesterfield. That's
right. You won't have to worry about it for a little while.
That's exactly right. You'll be fine for now.
Jackson,
what's up, brother?
Hey, how you doing? I got a little excited. News service. Am I gonna get like my own desk here? Or?
Oh, we're gonna create you like a remote. We got something breaking in the newsroom. Popping in. It's kind of become your milieu, as we've seen. You're the go-to guy when something either goes wrong, or on my show, you're gonna be the guy something goes right.
Yes, because Josh and Pete. I'm lucky if I can negotiate for oxygen from them.
Hey, we've got perks galore here.
The environmental controls are broken.
Electricity, water, you name it, we got it for you.
Look at this is just like this is Shangri-La. I might never go back.
That's right. You've come over to the light side. Yeah. Well, listen, Star Wars news.
Happy Easter, first of all, and to all who celebrate Happy Easter. Very, I saw a lot of the Obi-Wan memes. He has risen, and I hope people can accept the humor in that. But I know that it's a very serious holiday for a lot of people. So, cheers to everybody who's celebrating. And yeah, wow, what a great picture to put up right after my serious message.
That's right. After your seriousness, it is an excellent holiday, and I too celebrate with those who celebrate. But we like to have fun around here, and what better way than to have our favorite Space Easter Bunny join us to talk about news for a few minutes. So I want to hit a couple of things that were in the news this week, and just kind of get your opinion on it. Sure. The first thing that we saw, maybe it was the first thing, I don't know if they were in order or not, but we got Obi-Wan show casting.
Yes.
And that was super exciting. So tell me, out of all the people that we got in that great grid that they had up on the internet that I don't have available for us to look at right now, what was the one casting choice that was announced that you're most excited about?
Well, we obviously knew that the main man was in it. There have been some announcements here and there, but Moses Ingram is a new name that I'm not familiar with. O'Shea Jackson Jr. obviously, he's he is his father's son, but he also is an accomplished actor on his own, and I think it's an impressive cast in the experience, the diversity, obviously, but I think the talent is amazing, and I really am excited that they got Bonnie and Joel to come back to play Owen and Beru. I think that, like, that's something, like, if we had talked about that before the series was announced, oh yeah, they're gonna do an Obi-Wan series someday. Yeah, sure, okay, whatever. Will they ever get those two people to play those characters again? I think it would have been really hard to believe that was going to happen, and so a lot of these things are just kind of, I wouldn't say dream casting, but it's something that the hardcore fans have been kind of clamoring for,
Absolutely,
and just hoping for so long. So I'm putting my money on Rupert Friend to be the enemy, because
he
the
has
enemy of my enemy is my Rupert Friend.
That's right, and he's
And
got
that's the first time and the last time that joke will be made. Good night, everybody.
Seal it up. Copyright Jackson.
Yep.
Well, and here's my thought, and just kind of developing this as I was listening to you talk about it.
Yeah.
With Owen and Beru coming back, obviously it begs the question: are we going to get some sort of younger Luke cameo? Of course, it's not going to be Sebastian Stan. He's already too old to be, in whatever. That's only if they decided to do like a Return of the Jedi, post Return of the Jedi continuation, face morph. That's not it. I love Sebastian Stan. Falcon and Winter Soldier is fantastic, by the way.
Yes.
But what I think the way I could see it in my head is like Obi-Wan runs into Owen, or Owen and Beru both, like in town in the market, and they're having some conversation, and there's a little kid off in the distance with his back turned, and they're like referring to him, and it gives us that tease. But I feel like they're not going to give us like facial recognition. Hey, here's Luke. And I don't think I want that. I mean,
I completely, I feel the exact same way about, I don't want that, I don't want to see like Luke pop up all the time. I said this on Force Connect on Friday. Check your local listings. That I would love to see it. Luke show up at the absolute last scene of the last episode of the series.
Absolutely.
I mean, because honestly, like, I know it's Owen and Beru's role to keep Luke protected from Kenobi. Kenobi's Kenobi's got his own mission,
right?
But their mission is to keep Luke from safe from him. So right. I mean,
it's kind of a run interference proposition,
right? So it's kind of impractical to see him a lot. I mean, I think that would be kind of strange, like, especially when they refer to him, in A New Hope as that old hermit, and he doesn't even really. He kind of it's hard for him to place who he is,
Right. They've set it up that Luke doesn't know who he is because have you Ben Kenobi? I've heard of Ben Kenobi, but he's a crazy old man that like he doesn't really know him. They didn't have a bunch of run-ins when he was a teenager. He's like, oh yeah, I remember him. He used to live around the corner. Like it's a name he's heard them mention at some point.
So it's like it's not gonna be like Kramer in Seinfeld. Hey, it's Luke.
The door flies in, everybody goes nuts. Well, here's what I hope. I don't know I don't want to say I'm worried about it because there's nothing to be worried about. We're getting an Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show, for crying out loud.
Why should we worry?
I do hope that they take him off planet for some of this. I hope that he gets off of Tatooine, that there gets to be, and even as a part of, and what I love, and surely this isn't what they're doing, but I heard an interview with Timothy Zahn a couple of years ago, and whoever interviewed him asked him, I think it was Brandon at Talking Bay 94, he asked him, he said, are there any other Star Wars stories that you wish you could have written or could write still, just to get outside of the things he's done? And he had two. One of them was Boba Fett trying to get back to Jabba with Han and running into interference along the way. But the other one that really intrigued me was the idea of after Obi-Wan dropped Luke off at Owen and Beru's, he went to the other side of the galaxy and made a big ruckus and essentially faked his own death to draw attention away from Tatooine. And then he had to kind of work his way back and, ease into that civilian Tatooine hermit life. And I thought, what a great, go to the other side of the galaxy, make some noise, be seen. So maybe there's a version of that we could get. But either way, we're getting an Obi-Wan show. So nothing to complain about.
I love this kind of speculation. I think that, I mean, all these kinds of things make sense. It's great to speculate as long as, like, and obviously you and I are where we are going to appreciate the fact that
Absolutely.
this show is going to exist. But as you know, some people might have these preconceived notions of what the story is going to tell them, and and they're going to be disappointed if those objectives are not reached. I
And
feel
they're going to
bad.
be burning
I
their
really
sofas
feel
in their
bad for those
streets.
people. I feel real bad for those people.
I do too,
Like,
because they're going to miss out on it.
Just like, shut up, sit down, turn on your
Well-
Disney Plus, subscribe to Disney Plus first. I mean, obviously, plug.
Well, clearly, yeah.
I'm getting my shill bucks here.
That's right.
And
One more
sit down
punch and you get your card.
and enjoy the card. Enjoy the show. Enjoy like some what if the most recent Star Wars series is any indication, enjoy what will be most likely excellent television.
That's
just
right.
sit down and enjoy it.
Well, and
That's
I think
all.
Pete's the one that has said it, and Pete's in the chat tonight.
Hey,
Pete's the
Pete.
one that has said it many times. How many things in recent Star Wars have we gotten that we didn't want or think we wanted that turned out to be freaking great? Like, I didn't need a Mandalorian TV show. It's phenomenal. I was not the hugest of Boba Fett guys until Boba Fett showed back up in Mandalorian, and now we get Book of Boba Fett, and I'm pumped about it. Like, that's a part of what Star Wars does well, kind of like naming things not what they actually end up being. So let's just sit back and enjoy the ride. And then when we get it and it's over with, let's reflect on it and be happy, but go, great, there's more coming. Like, there's so much stuff coming up.
Yeah,
we don't have to get hung up on any of it.
I'm completely in the same boat. And you just described me when Mandalorian was announced. Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I actually really liked the Mandalorians in Rebels and Clone Wars. I found them a little one-sided in a lot of ways. But I thought there was a lot more about the culture and the dynamics that could be told. And sure enough, and I was like, well, they're making this story about this one like gunslinger. They're not going to have Bo-Katan. They're not going to do that. And they did.
We're not going to get Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah.
He's not going to name drop Thrawn. What are you talking about?
Live action Darksaber. I mean, this is truly, especially if you have an affinity for the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
This is, it's an interesting time. It's a good time for us, for me at least. I know there are a lot of people who object to the priority put on live action stuff, and I think that's a legitimate concern. But I'm very happy.
That's right.
And
it's a golden age for
keep
Star
it rolling,
Wars fans.
Yeah,
that's
man.
Right. Well, one other quick thing about Obi-Wan, and then I want to hit one more topic before I kick you out of here.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah, take that. Kumail being cast in this. I love Kumail Nanjiani. I think he is a fabulous comedian. He's an excellent actor. The Big Sick was a great movie written about him and his wife, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
I also think Silicon Valley is one of the best comedies that's been on TV in a really long time.
Yeah.
And so to get him coming up in the Kenobi show, I'm excited about. My biggest hope is, and I've heard several other people voice this as well, I hope he gets to be himself on the screen. It would be easy to make him a droid or an alien or, of course, there's lots of fan casting. Is he going to be grown up Kitster on some level? I think he's too old for that to fit into the timeline too, but maybe not. But either way, I'm excited to see what they get to do with him. I know he's had kind of not a renaissance, but he got jacked last spring to be in the Marvel movie or whatever it is that he's going to be in.
I think that's Eternals, right?
Oh, is it Eternals? Okay. So he's getting to do some big things, and I love that for him. I don't know him, but maybe we'll be best friends one day.
Hey, you never know. He could show up at Celebration. And,
that's right.
Sit next
just
to
my
you.
chance.
Yeah.
Get him.
No, I agree. I did not see The Big Sick. I have watched, I think, the first 2 seasons of Silicon Valley. He's great.
Mm-hmm.
He's great.
That's good stuff.
And I agree. Get him out of the prosthetics and don't put him in a droid. Don't have him actually have him be out there. I think was it John Leguizamo was the voice of one of the
fighting ring at the beginning of the season 2. Yeah,
and
same thing.
That's great. I mean, I'm sure he was just thrilled to be in a Star Wars, but it would be nice to see people. A diverse, diverse actors in front of the camera.
Absolutely.
And not hidden by CGI. Yeah, I agree completely.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, one more thing. Friday on Disney Plus,
Oh.
speaking of Disney Plus, our wonderful Disney overlords,
Oh.
they dropped a whole bunch of vintage Star Wars content. We got the Ewok stuff. We got the Tartakovsky Clone Wars.
Yeah.
We got the is it the friendly Ewok? I mean, the friendly Wookiee.
Yep.
The original appearance of Boba Fett. What of any of that have you dove into yet? Is there any of it that got your attention?
Oh, Nick. Oh, Nick. Oh, Nick. You wonderful, wonderful child. No. I was up at like 4 a.m. on Friday and watched the Tale of the Faithful Wookiee.
The Faithful Wookiee, that's it.
Yeah, I think it was the Tale of it. And the holiday special is still a holiday tradition in my home. We watch it around Life Day, which is November, I think 18th or 17th or whatever. It's kind of a religious holiday for us, but it was nice to watch that, and then I had kind of a light day for work. So I spent most of my time on about an hour on the treadmill. And I watched Clone Wars with captions.
Mm-hmm.
At least the last half. I watched the voice acting and whatnot, but then I started to run. So I enjoy that. I love the visuals. I loved how every Jedi and Asajj Ventress and they're just so overpowered. Overpowering. They're turned up to like 20, not even 10 or 11. Mace Windu literally punches the super battle droid army to death. It's fantastic.
It's just the kind of crazy we need.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I thought the portrayals, were interesting watching them and knowing what happens in the actual the canon series. It's great to see the kind of the wheels turning on the characters. The motivations. Absolutely. They're not always fully fleshed out, but it's great to see them start to germinate. And then I obviously had my Force Connect responsibilities. I was batting pinch hitting for Josh and Pete, and with Raven and Jerry. It was fantastic. And then to cap off the night, I watched I did a little bit of a group watch with a couple of friends on Caravan of Courage, which, by the way, this bottle is, I don't know if you guys remember how full this bottle was. Yes. Yeah.
Caravan of Courage took the rest of it.
Caravan of Courage was, let's just say, fantastic. Yeah. It was.
Yeah, let's go with that.
It's certainly, it was certainly, my enjoyment of it was definitely heightened by the amount of whiskey I was drinking. Let's just say.
Well, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Apprentice Ewok says, "Yub Nub Jackson."
That's right.
Thank you. I appreciate
That's
it.
That's right. Yes. He's giving you the tip of the hat.
Very Yub Nub to you too. Brandon, by the way, I just want to say, Brandon, hope everything is okay with your family. I know that there was a medical issue. So my thoughts and prayers with you, buddy.
Absolutely.
And I hope all you guys, I see a lot of familiar faces in the chat. Hope everybody's having a good Easter day.
Glad everybody's hanging out. And I just want to say to you, my favorite Space Rabbit brother, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks Nick.
For taking some minutes to talk news. And I'm going to get you on out of here and send you off to the rest of your Easter duties.
All right. Peace.
See you, buddy. All right. News with Jackson. We had our own special Space Rabbit on Easter, but now it's time to get to our guest. We have an amazing guest tonight. I'm so excited to bring him on, and I'm thankful for his patience as we talk news for a few minutes. So we're going to get in here, maybe get his thoughts on some of that stuff. My guest tonight is Brandon Bernard. Brandon is a senior graphic designer. He works at Topps Digital. And something that certainly got Brandon on my radar is that he works on the Star Wars card trading app. I grew up collecting baseball cards the old school way, as many of us did. I still have them all in a box. They have not turned into the fortune that I was told as a kid that they would become eventually. But I still have them. I can't bring myself to part with them. And I know we've got some folks in the chat that collect and are on the Card Trader app and also connect physical Star Wars cards. Shout out to Framey. I know Frank and Amy are watching tonight, so I can't wait, and I don't want to waste any more time. I want to bring in my guest, Brandon Bernard.
Hey.
Brandon, what is up?
Oh, not much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Dude, we're so glad to have you here. I'm so glad that you're willing to come and hang out on a Saturday night and even tolerate some of our weird Star Wars space rabbit silliness.
Listen, I'm right there with you guys. I enjoyed listening to the speculation on Obi-Wan Kenobi, a show that I'm very excited about. It's very apropos. As we get into my top 7, we'll find out that
that's right. It's going to tie right in.
Yeah. It's great. It's great to be here.
It's going to tie right in for sure, and we will definitely get to that in a little bit. First thing we're going to do right off the bat, and this is one of my favorite things that we are doing on the show. I tell my guests before they come on, I'm trying to brand myself as the Stanley Tucci of Star Wars podcasts. Stanley Tucci, especially over the course of quarantine in the last year, goes live on Instagram. He has this super well-appointed kitchen. He's wearing blazers. It's just, clearly he's classy. It's oozing out of his pores, but he's making cocktails and he's talking about these cocktails he's made. So I decided that's what we were going to do on Podcast of the Wills. And so every week we have a guest, we name a cocktail after him. And so that's what we're doing tonight. And so I've got my glass. I've got a shout out to my best friend, Jason, for my Star Wars highball glass. It's got the Falcon being chased by some TIE fighters in it. So what I've got tonight, and I go ahead and throw the name up here on the screen. This is Brandon's Tops Shelf Highball.
Nice.
Had to get a little pun in there. Had to tie it in. That's right. So we're going Tops Shelf tonight. So if you've got your glass, we've got some ice that we're putting in here. We're making a whiskey cocktail tonight. So I have my favorite Star Wars decanter that I've covered in stickers.
Nice.
And I always say I've got to do this without pouring it on my computer. So I'm going to get a little pour here. Now, a traditional highball, my understanding, is with ginger ale. So I have some ginger ale. I have really classy Publix ginger ale because I had to go to the grocery store the other day. So I'm going to get my ginger ale in here. And then it calls for a garnish. And you can kind of garnish how you want. You could have lemon. You could have lime. I forgot to get both of those things when I was at the store. So I'm gonna do something only slightly off book. I do have some grenadine here. So I'm going to put just a touch of grenadine. And I do have some lime juice. So I'm going to throw some lime juice in there. Give it a spritz. Give it a little swirl around in the glass. It's got a good color to it. It's kind of separated. And I'm going to raise a toast to you, Brandon, as a thanks for joining me tonight, coming on the show. Cheers.
Oh, cheers. Glad to be here.
So we've got the silliness out of the way. Top shelf. That's right. It is top shelf indeed. We are talking to you tonight. I want to hear about, as we get started, we're going to get to your top 7 list in just a little bit. But I want you to tell us a little about your Star Wars origin story, how you came to Star Wars. I think we're about the same age, and so we probably have similar Star Wars stories as people our age tend to do. But tell us a little bit about when you first saw Star Wars, what it was like, how it was connected for you growing up.
Yeah. I was too young to really have an in-theater experience with the originals. Sadly, I wish that I had that memory, but I was born in 81, so I missed the original by a few years. And then I was just too young to really beg anybody to take me to Empire or Jedi when those came out. So I was watching Care Bears and Disney movies at that time. So I remember coming to Star Wars on VHS pretty much. I can remember watching Return of the Jedi in the den with my mom and dad showing it to me, and specifically the Jabba the Hutt scene at toward the beginning of the movie there stands out. Just all those, to me at the time, scary monsters.
It was scary. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
it was scary.
Burned into my brain, these grotesque creatures and this dim, spooky place that he's in. So that stands out to me, and I feel like it took me a number of years to figure out the order of Star Wars, and that has only become more and more confusing as the years go on. But yeah, it feels like I started with Jedi and sort of eventually found my way to the proper order of watching them. And I don't remember a moment when I became a Star Wars fan. It feels like I always was, even though,
Sure.
like I said, when I was really little, I wasn't as aware of it. But at some point, it was just like, yeah, this is it. This is sort of my everything, my lodestar. So that's pretty much how I came to Star Wars. I'm a big original trilogy wonk as a result. I enjoy all the movies, all the shows a great deal. But I always kind of go back to, I like how you describe your podcast as a sacred text. For me, the sacred text is 4, 5, and 6.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally connect with that. And I can't remember if you and I talked about this in some of our emails when I asked you to come on, but kind of the way we started this show in its original audio format, and the reason for that tagline. In fact, my wife told me the other day, she's like, "You're not really doing that anymore." But what we did is we took New Hope and we broke it down into sections. And essentially we said that we were doing a Bible study, but instead of using the Bible, we were using Star Wars. And so the first episode, if it was, friendship or partnership, we watched up through the point where 3PO and R2 get captured on Tatooine. And we use that as the text that we use to kind of talk about what friendship and partnership means. And then there's a section about sacrifice that relates to Obi-Wan on the Death Star. And we just kind of worked our way through. We've gotten Empire Strikes Back separated out into sections and categories, but we haven't gotten to that series yet. So I think that may be something that we add on as some additions to the live shows that we've been doing. But that I get your point, and I relate to that is, especially to be, to have grown up in the time period I did. I was always an original trilogy, that was my Star Wars. And I spent time in the 90s and 2000s disavowing the prequels, and then come back around to realize, what, it does all belong together and some of that. But my heart still goes to that original stuff. And so I was talking to somebody the other day about being a Star Wars collector and having things in my Star Wars collection. And the primary stuff that I'm after is vintage stuff. There's going to be some new stuff that creeps in along the way, but ultimately what I'm looking for is, original toys that I either had as a kid or wanted as a kid, posters, playbills, books, any of that kind of stuff. I showed these last week. We were at a thrift store nearby last week, and I found the original Star Wars story photo books that have all the pictures in them. Awesome. And I got both of those for like $8. And I found Star Wars and Empire, and they didn't have Jedi. And my best friend texted me later this week, and he found it for me somewhere. So I've got the set.
Great.
That's that thing. It's that draw to the original trilogy. So, that certainly resonates for you.
Well, and it's funny too. I mean, you mentioned the Disney Plus bringing those 80s Ewoks things, the vintage stuff that they brought. And I think, as a kid, I watched Caravan of Courage and The Battle for Endor. And to me, that was as much Star Wars as Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back. Like, it probably took me a while before I was able to even separate those out, that wasn't part of a trilogy that was meant to go together. So it's been great. It's been a real nostalgia kick for me this week, and I've been watching those. And I agree, Caravan of Courage probably takes a bottle of booze to get through. I think Battle for Endor for me is a little bit more enjoyable. But it's been a real kick to get back.
And is Caravan of Courage, is that Wilford Brimley?
No, it's
Battle for Endor. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. I'm tracking now. But so you came up with the original trilogy. You got the prequels obviously at some point, as we all did.
Yes. Which to me, what was fun about those, that was my first experience doing Star Wars the way everybody else originally got to do Star Wars. Like, I stood in an actual line in front of an actual movie theater to get tickets for First Day for Phantom Menace and to get them for my friends. I think I ditched school to do it, in fact. That was sort of the last, one of the last experiences like that you have. Now everybody goes online and scores their tickets on Fandango, and so it's a whole different thing. But it was just exhilarating to me that Star Wars was coming back when it came back, and to sort of get to have those experiences that I sort of missed out on just by the randomness of the year of my birth. But that was a real gas, and to just sort of be sitting in a theater and experiencing that, the the logo exploding backward into space,
Yes.
and the opening crawl, and to sort of read like, okay, where are we now? What's happening?
That's right.
It was great. It was exhilarating.
No, I agree completely. And I've told this story before on the show. So apologies to some of my listeners who've heard it before. But I was halfway through college when Phantom Menace came out, and we are in Central Alabama, and we were hanging out before we were going to go see the midnight showing. And at the 10 o'clock news, there was a news reporter on TV in front of the theater talking about how, there's a crowd and Star Wars is back.
Yeah.
So we panicked and we rushed to the movie theater because we thought, well, holy crap, we need to get good seats, because it wasn't assigned seating. You just had to get there and get in line, like you said. So we got there to get in line, and they had staged a line for the news segment, and got whoever happened to be around, and they framed the shot just with some people behind her. And so we were there like an hour and a half early, just hanging out, sitting on the curb, because we weren't going back home after that.
There was a pretty good line, I remember. I mean, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, not like maybe not the biggest movie town in the world, but I remember, there was a pretty good line that wrapped around the theater, hours before the tickets went on sale. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about your work with Topps, and certainly with the Card Trader app, because as I've said, the last couple of guests I've had on, your job is Star Wars, and that's the dream right there. That's the thing that all of us nerds hope for. Tell us a little bit about that, how you got into that. Tell us about what you do.
It is the dream, and it's funny, I sort of ended up in it by accident. I didn't set out thinking, I love Star Wars, how can I work on it? Oh, maybe I'll get a job at Topps. I got a job at Topps sort of as most people get jobs, sort of, accidentally. Somebody knows that, somebody works over here and there's an opening, and, you're looking for work. So that's kind of how it started. I had just moved to New York and did so without any kind of promise of a job. So I was fairly hungry and took on the job, and I started working in the digital division, where I still am, but for the Kick app, which is our soccer app.
Okay.
And was on that app for 3 or 4 years, a good while. And I really enjoyed it. It was a really good team. I'm not a soccer person, I'm not a sports person at all. So, I'm sort of a fish out of water, but a really fun way to just sort of design whatever the heck I wanted to, all kinds of random stuff, just whatever popped into my head. We would just make soccer cards out of that. And, a good friend of mine at work, Matt Petz, was the designer on Star Wars at the time when we debuted that. And he was on there for a few years. And then he shifted to the Disney app when we launched that. So there was an opportunity for me to move over to Star Wars and sort of start living the dream that I didn't even dare to dream. So that's sort of how I ended up, just sort of by virtue of happenstance, I just ended up on Star Wars, and I love it. I'm addicted. I can't imagine working on another app at this point.
Sure.
I used to have this philosophy that never work on the thing that you love, because then the thing you love is also your work, and that sort of gets complicated. But at the same time, now that I've been working on the thing I love for a few years, I can't imagine not doing it. Absolutely.
Well, and now as you work on this Star Wars card trading app, and as you tell us a little bit about how that works, like I know, and I encourage anybody, your website is listed in your Twitter bio. I would encourage everybody to go check that out, because you've got some great art that you have created in there. You've got some pixel stuff, some ink stuff. And I was, of course, attuned to the ink stuff because there's some great Star Wars drawings that you have done. Do you draw any of the things that are in the Card Trader app? Are you more,
No,
organization? What is your role? Tell us a little bit about how that works or what you do.
So I would say that for the past couple of years, I've been the primary designer of the content on the Star Wars Card Trader app. So sort of more of a graphic design position, where I'm, making the frames or the templates, and we put the final frames and assets and stuff into that. Lately, I've been taking sort of a more, we have a great designer, Darren Pepe, who's sort of stepping in and doing a lot more of the designing lately, so I can sort of take on a more managerial or developmental sort of position on the app, sort of coming up with what our content is going to be, trying to sort of plan that out and make sure that we have, content planned against various benchmarks, holidays, and important, movie and TV releases and that kind of stuff. And just making sure we have the assets for that and that we know what we're doing. My art, my drawings and doodles and stuff have not actually been in the app. That's sort of a little bit of a process where we have to get artists approved by Lucasfilm. And then there's sort of a rigorous sketch phase that goes to Lucasfilm, and they have feedback. Sure. We get that back to the artists, and the artists make revisions based on Lucasfilm's feedback. And so it's a little bit of a competitive environment in that respect, and sort of something that I've been a little overwhelmed by that, just to sort of contemplate approaching that with my own art. So that I sort of do for fun. That's just me. Sure. I've just always drawn, and whenever I'm wondering what I should draw, Star Wars is always the first thing to pop into my head. So that's how that came about. Stuff on that website is a little bit out of date. I need to do a better job about keeping that stuff current. It's probably about a year old or a year or two old. I don't know. But
given the last year that we've had, I don't think anybody faults you for not updating anything in the last year.
And yet, it probably would have been the perfect time to do things like update your website. But
that's all right. But well, and I have to say, the Card Trader app is a lot of fun. Like I said in my intro, having you on, I collected physical baseball cards as a kid growing up. I was always a baseball guy. I love baseball still. It's my favorite sport. And I had those cards, and of course heard all the stories about the people with the Honus Wagners and the cards that my grandfather had a box of baseball cards under his bed, and that paid for his retirement or whatever. And,
right.
At some point I was like, I'm going to collect baseball cards, and I still have them all, and they're in a box, and awesome. I'm not going to ever do anything with them, but I can't bring myself to get rid of them. Right. But as a Star Wars fan, and I was aware of the Star Wars trading cards when I was growing up, I just never had any of them. It just was not something that was in my collection, or at that age, I don't think I cared enough. And so when I downloaded the app, gosh, a year or two ago, I don't know how long I've had it on my phone. It was one of those fun things just to kind of play around with, and, check in every day and have the little daily goals. And, it's interesting to me. And I have the Bunt app too, the baseball card app. I got that just in the last month or so. But it's neat to me how you can kind of add a game element to something like a Card Trader app. You gamify it by, if you do these open this many packs in a day, you get some more coins. Or if you, get certain cards to do like the building, collect the 5 pieces to make this other card. And I think that's a great way to make it in a digital environment, something that people are like, oh, I want to do this, not just, okay, here's something to look at on my phone. Now what do I do?
Right. I think there's the sort of the gamification that you mentioned. I think there's a social element to it that's really cool. I think it's a way of bringing people with those shared interests together in a place where they can trade with each other and sort of make connections. And even if it's externally, from the app, a lot of people are connecting over Twitter and that kind of stuff. And the other thing that I think the app has over physical is just the responsiveness, the immediacy of it. We put out some Ewok cards this weekend, sort of in honor of the stuff that came out. The Mudhorn egg event. There's just stuff that when you sort of when you're in the physical realm, it just takes longer. You have to plan that stuff out much longer. So when something happens, like what did happen with the Vintage release, which is Lucasfilm just announced it like a week or two before they were going to do it, or Disney Plus announced it just a week or two before they were going to bring it to their platform. What can physical do about that? Really, they would have to begin to plan a set, and it would probably take a year for it to get out. And we were like, oh, this is coming out. What do we have that we can grab up and sort of like make a new variant of and get out there? So it's sometimes a stress on us that we are so reactive and immediate, but I think it's really fun that we can be
and I think. And I think something that you hit on too, besides the gamification, which is really important, is the community aspect of it. Like, I think that really is a fun, powerful other way to connect. In fact, we've got friends in the live chat, like I mentioned, Frank and Amy. I connected with them through the podcasting community. It turns out they live in Alabama, a couple of hours north of me.
Yeah.
But then also they're on the card trading app. And so like we have these multiple points of connection through digital, whether it's podcasts, whether it's the card trading app. And so it's created, as I'm watching the live chat here, Brandon, one of our other people that's watching tonight, he said he just downloaded it yesterday and he has no idea what he's doing, but Frank and Amy have already sent them, him their handle so that they can, get some trades going on. And
that's what I love about the community. I love the, on Twitter, people trying to help each other, finish each other's collections, or
absolutely
welcome new people by just saying, who's your character? I'll send you some trades.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun.
I love watching that happen on Twitter. And,
and my kids have gotten it on their phones, and 3 of my 4 girls have gotten it, and they have varying degrees of interest in Star Wars. But again, it's something to do on their phone. And there's that excitement of, you open a pack and what are you going to get? My middle, or my younger of my 2 twins, she doesn't care about Star Wars, but it's still that thing of like, I got to open something. We had this joke. It's not a joke. It was something that really happened for years when my kids were younger. Every time we went to the grocery store, we'd pass one of the end caps on the aisle of the grocery store where the Hot Wheels cars were. And they're 94 cents. Like, it's very low impact to buy a Hot Wheels car. Well, at some point when Dad took the girls to the grocery store, I said, hey, don't y'all want a Hot Wheels car? So they picked out a Hot Wheels car, and it was a big deal and it was exciting. And I was out like $3. Well, then it became this every time we went to the grocery. Can we get a Hot Wheels car? Can we get a Hot Wheels car? At some point I looked up and we had like 300 Hot Wheels cars, which kid me would have been all over. But as a dad and as an adult, it's just something I'm stepping on. But it occurred to me in one of those moments when I realized how many Hot Wheels cars we had, they don't play with them. They just like getting to pick one out. They like getting to open it and then they're done. It moved, and that's kids to a degree. But the card trading app, like I said, all three of my 4 girls had put it on their phone, and they've forgotten about it for a little while. So when I was talking about you were coming on the show tonight, they're like, I need to put that back on my phone. Like, they're ready to get, plugged back in. And so it is just a fun thing to connect with. And it's neat that, that you get to do that for a job. Like, I really do think that's fascinating. And I think the challenges of some of the things you said, the bigger picture stuff to get to work on. Like, I see the challenges as exciting in that too. What are the next event things going to be? What are we going to tie in when the Obi-Wan series drops? What are we going to, Bad Batch is coming out. There's going to be, modes. And so to have the opportunity to sit with a big dry erase board and go, we want to do this here. We want to do this here. Where do we that's awesome. That's
very
really
much
cool
sort of like a jigsaw puzzle where we plug in a couple of points and then we have to start figuring out what fills in between those sort of tentpole moments, and just create sort of a flow and a narrative, and have those peaks of excitement, and pace everything. It's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it.
Absolutely. Well, that's so great that you get to do that. And I have to say, and I'm glad that I didn't bring it up when Jackson was here earlier when we were doing the news.
Yeah.
But to my knowledge, I have not seen any Jacksons in the card trading app yet. So if he's there, I don't know about it.
Well, I don't think he's considered canon at this point, or maybe he is, but
I think he is now because of the certain point of view Empire Strikes Back book.
Okay. So I'm hopeful. I would love to get some Jackson cards in there. It sort of depends on us having assets, which right now I think the only sort of visuals we would have of him are maybe from some Marvel comics, which sometimes the rights between Lucasfilm and Marvel and Topps is a little bit of a sorting issue there sometimes. But
absolutely.
Yeah, as soon as we can get Jackson cards in there, believe me, I will be all over that, because a green Bugs Bunny in space, what's not to like?
What's better than that?
I love it. Yeah.
Well, and again, I'm sure it goes to, and I haven't been in the app and done everything that y'all have ever done, obviously. And I'm sure some of it could go to sourcing and rights and that kind of stuff. But I would love to see some Macquarie concept art, in that. I think that would be really cool.
Some, and there will be more. We love Macquarie art. The team does, and and I mean, he's revered. I mean, Lucasfilm loves him too. It's sort of, it's just that's classic art. We love to get that out there. We're working on a couple things, so I can't.
That's awesome.
Don't know when they're going to drop, but
well, I'm not going to push you. I don't want to get you in trouble,
yeah.
but that's awesome. Well, because you work in a card app, the focus of cards most of the time are characters, and your list tonight that we decided on as we were talking about you coming on the show was your top 7 Star Wars characters. And I can't wait to dig into this, and so I don't want to waste any more of our time. So I'm going to get our happy little slideshow pulled up here. Awesome. If I can make the technology where, there we go. Look at us looking all fancy. Your top 7 Star Wars characters.
Yeah.
And we're going to jump right in with number 7. And we have Finn, the man. Tell us about Finn and why he ended up on your list.
Well, and first of all, these all 7 are like sort of like tied for first place. It's really hard to pick.
Well, it is a favorite child proposition.
Yeah, exactly. It was sort of a Sophie's Choice times 7. Finn, what can I say? First of all, like honorable mention to Rey and Poe in this slot as well, because that trio, I think, they were just incredibly charismatic and likable, and I just immediately they just light up the screen in the sequel trilogy, and I love them. Finn in particular, I find really interesting. First of all, there's the whole, defecting stormtrooper element there, which I love. And as if that weren't enough, then you have that force sensitivity sort of beginning to emerge. That's why I picked this image of him wielding the lightsaber. We can debate all night about, maybe how that got a little unfairly silenced or steamrolled over as the trilogy wore on. And I would like to see more development there. I would love a Poe and Finn Disney Plus series, quite honestly. I love their dynamic, their friendship. And I think a stormtrooper turned Jedi Knight is just, not that he's there yet, but like that's a trajectory I'm here for. And also he's the thing that a lot of people wanted from Rey and felt like they were robbed of, which is somebody without pedigree, somebody without that lineage, having those force abilities and becoming a Jedi if he was to actually become a Jedi. So I think there's something there, and I'd like to see more of that for sure.
Absolutely. Well, and I think you hit it right on the head talking about Poe and Finn. They have that great start. They're in the TIE fighter. They're escaping. And,
some of the best dialogue in the movie.
Oh, it's so good. That quick back and forth.
Yeah.
But they really did, in my opinion, and there are a lot of things that I actually really do like about Rise of Skywalker, contrary to how a lot of people feel about it. One of the things that I think they did really well was that buddy cop feel, especially up front when they're in the Falcon and they're being chased, and all of the that back and forth that they have, when they land, and Rey comes walking up, oh, he's in a good mood, all the just the back and forth, the give and take.
You feel that history, you feel the friendship there, you sort of
absolutely, and it's only born out of such a small period of time, which even makes it that much more appealing. But you're right, one of the biggest draws when we got that Force Awakens trailer for me right off the bat, because it opens with this guy popping up in a stormtrooper costume, and we find out right away that he's a stormtrooper that defects. We've never seen that before. That was a big thing. And somebody in the chat, Seth, said a stormtrooper Jedi is a fascinating concept. And talking about Ralph McQuarrie, that was kind of one of the original concepts, was that stormtroopers had lightsabers.
That's right.
And so it's almost like a retro way that they tied some of those ideas and concepts together. But you're right. I wish they could have developed more of Finn figuring out he's a Jedi. We get the nods of it in Rise of Skywalker, the sensitivities. I know the Lego stuff is not really considered canon, but in that Lego holiday special that they did, he's being trained. And so we get to see a little bit more of a nod towards that.
Yeah.
But there's a heart in that character too. And I think that's the other big driving thing. John Boyega, I didn't know him at all. I hadn't seen Attack the Block before Star Wars came out.
Yeah.
But there was heart in that character from the beginning. And I'll tell you what sold me was whenever we got that sizzle reel before the movie came out, and he's talking about the first time he saw the Falcon and he walked onto the ramp and he cried, and I was like, he's one of us. Like, this is real. Yeah. It wasn't just a job. And so that's an excellent number 7. Well, are you ready for the next one?
Let's do it.
All right, this is a big one. This is the big one.
Oh,
R2D2.
Why is this not number one? Maybe this should be number one.
He's essentially my number one if I were making this list.
Yeah, I mean, everybody on this list is my number one. Basically, I have 7 number one. I probably have more than 7 number ones, but R2D2. It should be the R2D2 saga. It's not the Skywalker saga. It's R2D2 saga. He's there for every single movie. He's the hero. None of this would ever have worked without R2D2. He brings, the essential message to Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's driving everything all the time in the background. He's got the plans of the Death Star on him. He's, throwing the lightsaber to Luke to rescue himself from the Sarlacc pit and Return of the Jedi. He's always there. And just heroic, steadfast, funny, adorable, iconic. Nothing says Star Wars like just looking at R2D2.
It makes you smile. Like we had like a lot of places, we have a minor league baseball team, and they did a Star Wars night a couple of summers ago, and so we went. And somebody that lives near here has his own R2 that he built, and he brought that thing up and was rolling it around in the ballpark, and I was 5 years old again, like just holy crap. It's like I'm looking at my wife going, I need you to take our picture, and she's like, really? I'm like, yes, really. And when I went to Celebration in Orlando, the same thing. My favorite picture was when I found R2 rolling around the convention floor at Celebration, and it was just, he's always been my favorite. He's always been, and again, at some point I'd go, why is he your favorite? But he just is. And what you said that I really key to is the arc that he has throughout this entire saga. To be the very beginning, she's putting the disc inside of him, she's making the hologram, comes all the way to the end, and he's by Leia's side when she dies. Right. Spoiler alert. Sorry, everybody.
You haven't seen it.
But but I had those moments, especially with, Force Awakens and Last Jedi, and like I wanted R2 to have more stuff to do. He was asleep in one of them. He was, he shows up, or he's with Rey when they go to Octu to find Luke, and all of that. But ultimately, it makes sense that he's with Leia. Like that's where he's going to be, and it really says to me, or it always stands out in my head, and I feel like I've said this before on the air. Another favorite sci-fi piece of mine is Ender's Game, and in Ender's Game and in the books that come after Ender's Game, they had that concept of the speaker for the dead, and it was the person who was designated to tell the story of the person that died, not necessarily as a eulogy, but like, you're going to carry on my message and to whatever. And that's who R2 is. R2 is the speaker for the dead, for Leia, for the rebellion, for all these different, aspects of what happened. And it just, as a grown up, quote unquote, and as somebody with kids, like that appeals to me in a different way than it did when I was a kid, when he was just cool and blue and rolled around.
I mean, how touching are those moments in Rise of Skywalker on the Millennium Falcon when he's it's R2D2 that convinces I guess is this the Last Jedi that I'm
Last Jedi,
where he's convincing Luke to sort of get back into it, and
when he plays that hologram,
oh my gosh,
when he plays the hologram and the touch they put on it that it's aged because everybody has aged and his projector's probably not as good, like that was one of those choke me up moments in that movie where I was like, holy crap. And
that's a great moment.
I've told this story before too, but when I went to Celebration in Orlando in 2017, it was right after Carrie Fisher had died. It was in April and she had died in December. And we were there when Billy Lord came out on the stage and recited that speech that Carrie had done from the first movie. And it was just one of those powerful, like, holy crap. But again, the connecting point, and to be standing with a bunch of strangers, and every one of us are like, you're the best. Like, we don't care what you do now. You're Princess Leia's daughter. It was just a big deal. So I support R2 on every level. And he's
probably too low on the list, but
that's okay. It's a good list. And ultimately, we're not going to hold you to like, well, I can't believe you like so-and-so better. At some point, we have to start somewhere and go somewhere.
Yeah. And before we move on, honorable mention to C-3PO. All of these probably have an honorable mention, somebody that's left off, but belongs on here. I'm a huge C-3PO fan. Not a lot of love for 3PO out there in the world. I get it. He's a little bit of a obnoxious Chris, but he's hilarious. He's like R2, always there throughout the whole thing. Some comic relief and lovable in his own way, I think. So
absolutely.
Don't want to forget him on this.
That's right. They do have a matched set situation going on.
Yes, almost all of these sort of have a flip side.
Well, speaking of the next one, and speaking of somebody who has had a renaissance, let's talk about this guy.
Yes, and you sort of touched on it at the top of this podcast, that I'm not sure Boba Fett would have made my list if you'd asked me last year.
Right.
I am a Boba Fett fan, always have been. I've sort of
Sure.
Definitely been susceptible to just his the mystique around him, even though a lot of people have pointed out, like, what did he actually do in the originals? He just seemed like he didn't seem like as badass as he was meant to be,
as we thought he was supposed to be.
Yeah, but I totally bought into the mystique and have always been a fan. Would he have made my top 7 a year ago? Probably not. So it's entirely due to what they've done with him in The Mandalorian season 2 and the way they've really fleshed out that character. That really has put him on the list and just made him a really remarkable character, I think.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think you hit it right on the head. And that's what I said. I always liked Boba Fett. He looks cool. I mean, you can't look at him and be like, yeah, I don't really care. Like, he looks cool. He looks like he's, messed somebody up.
Right.
But I was just never as in the tank for Boba Fett as other people I knew were. It wasn't like a focus of my collection. It was just like, oh yeah, that's that, the guy with the cool helmet that was in like 7.5 or 9 minutes of, the original trilogy or whatever it was.
Sure.
And in fairness to the way it seemed like he kind of went out like a punk. Han Solo was blind and knocked him into the Sarlacc pit.
Right.
He's the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy. But the way he came back and the way they did that story in Mandalorian, like, I was fully on board. Like, I'm so excited to see what they do with the Book of Boba Fett TV show.
Me too.
If I was to have, a small regret coming out of season 2 of The Mandalorian, is I wanted more Cobb Vanth, but I'm a huge Timothy Oliphant fan. I love the way they did that and kind of tied those, the Chuck Wendig books together and brought that piece in. Like, I thought that was a lot of fun.
It was kind of remarkable that they even did that, I think.
Right.
Like, that we got as much of it as we did, or got it at all, I think was pretty cool.
Yes.
I feel satisfied by that.
Oh, without a doubt. And so Boba Fett is definitely, worthy of being on the list and has certainly moved up in my, original esteem.
Yeah.
And I have somebody else that's kind of in a similar boat that we'll talk about after we get through your list.
Okay.
I do want to put this up here. Framey said it was so cool that the recent Derek Loffman art set and card trader included a newer version of FETT.
We had to. I mean, I said we got to have the cleaned up. When we assigned it to him, we said we're doing all green characters for that. We said, so we want Boba Fett. We want Boba Fett in the cleaned up armor from Mandalorian. And that was really cool to see, sort of a factory reset of, what he must have looked like in his heyday.
Boba Prime.
Yeah. And yet with the dad bod. I love dad bod Boba Fett.
Oh, without a doubt. He's got that robe on.
Yeah, exactly.
And the best part of that, and of course, certainly credit to Robert Rodriguez for directing that episode, but like the action in that episode gave us the Boba Fett we had always heard about.
Yes.
And that was I think a huge part of that turning point was to see, he's older, he has a dad bod, he doesn't have all his stuff yet, he's got a gaffy stick from a bantha, and he's still owning all the stormtroopers around.
Yep.
So that was well, and because they mentioned it, as I've been using the card trader app, that Derek Loffman art stuff is fantastic. Like, I love all those cards recently. That's been a great event.
Derek Loffman fans as well. More on the way of that as well. So
excellent. Excellent. Well, speaking of on the way, let's get to number 4. How's that sound? All right. Number 4, we have the man himself, Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. And this is another one that, had you asked me, I don't know, let's go back 5-6 years, who my top 7 were, I'm not sure if Luke Skywalker would have made the list, but I think I think the sequel trilogy has gone a long way toward sort of adding nuance to Luke Skywalker and giving a really satisfying sort of sense of arc and trajectory on this character. I feel like he's somebody who had a really good arc in the original trilogy. You start out with sort of whiny, borderline unlikable, Luke Skywalker. You end up with sort of self-assured, confident Jedi Knight, and that in itself is sort of rewarding. But narrowing it down to top 7, there's a bunch of other sort of fascinating characters that jump in there. But I think Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker, both really. I love the complicated sense that they bring to Luke Skywalker there, the conflict and
absolutely
the regret and the ongoing struggles are really fascinating there. So
well, and I was going to compliment you too, because with the exception, I think, of the Boba Fett image, all the images that I'm putting up on the screen as we talk through your list are images that you chose and sent to me for these characters. And so I was going to tip my hat to you for selecting a Last Jedi image of Luke, because I feel the same way.
Yeah,
I love Last Jedi. Like, it really is in the tip top of my favorite Star Wars movies, right there behind the original trilogy movies, because of exactly what you just kind of hit on, like the meta narrative in that, and Luke having a recognition after failing multiple times and saying, what did you expect? Like, this is the problem the Jedi have had for centuries. And, to be able to have that arc and to have that play out the way it did, I still love it. I get excited when I rewatch that one, and just listening to him talk about that and seeing the age and the wisdom that didn't come because he was the golden child. It was age and wisdom that came because he went through some stuff and he had to figure it out.
And kind of didn't get it completely right. Rise of Skywalker, I have complicated feelings about. I don't 100% love it, and I don't 100% dislike it. But I have to say, everything about Luke in there, I feel I got right. Like, I'm totally engaged every scene that Mark Hamill is in that film, and I'm just right there with it. I don't think they made any bad choices there. I know that could be controversial. There's a lot of people.
That's okay. That's right. You're in good company with that.
Yeah. I just I love every moment of Luke in that movie. I think they get that. I don't love everything all the way through, but every time he's on screen, I am right on the same page with them. I think
absolutely. Well, and I like this comment that we get in the chat. It says, Luke, a masterclass of dealing with what life dealt you as a kid, aspiring to be something more, failing spectacularly, dusting yourself off, and ultimately coming back from the brink.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. And
similar to Boba, what we get of him in The Mandalorian is those couple of minutes of, this is prime Luke. Like, this is after Return of the Jedi. He's been out doing some stuff around the galaxy, and he comes in and owns those super battle troopers. I forget what they're called.
Right.
Death troopers, I guess. No, that's what are they called? I'm totally blanking.
You're talking about the super troops that, like,
yes.
Yeah. I don't know what they're called either.
But anyhow, but he comes in, and we get a little bit of that Luke in his prime as he works his way down that hallway and just kind of slices through all of them.
Yeah. So the Mandalorian further adds to the sort of the power of the Luke character. I think that was a good. I mean, there were many ways in which I did not. There were rumors flying that we're going to see Luke's the Jedi that Grogu calls out to, and I just thought, no, let's don't have everything be about Luke Skywalker. We don't.
That's right.
That. And yet, when I saw that green lightsaber, when I saw that gloved hand, I was thrilled. I was
absolutely
so excited, and I thought I didn't want this, but I do.
That's right, and that goes exactly back to what I said up top.
You said that earlier,
talking about the Kenobi show.
Yeah,
it's one of those things, because of course we were all theorizing who's going to respond. My money was on Ahsoka was going to change her mind. She was going to say, I can't. And she was going to come back having thought about Anakin, having thought about, some of that.
I heard Ezra Bridger. I heard Ace Windu.
There's a Cal Kestis out there.
Fine. Just don't bring back Luke. We don't need Luke. He's going to pull the spotlight, and it's going to be all about him then. I had all my, sort of up in my head reasons why Luke was the wrong thing to do, but it was exactly the right thing to do.
Yeah, and it was perfect, and I'm so glad that we got it when we did.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Luke Skywalker is a very qualified number 4. So when we move to number 3, we've got everybody's favorite scoundrel, Han Solo himself.
Yeah, no real surprises on this list. There's not deep cuts on this list. That's pretty much your core characters. But Han Solo, I mean, and Harrison Ford specifically. I mean,
Yes.
in this case, you can't really tease the two out, right? I mean,
Well, and if you go back and think about that early rumor, a Tom Selleck Han Solo, it wouldn't have worked.
No,
it just wouldn't have worked.
Almost anything else wouldn't have worked. And I think, I have this thing I say about Harrison Ford all the time. A lot of people, I don't think, give Harrison Ford credit for being a great actor necessarily, which I get. But, I think Harrison Ford makes things work that shouldn't work.
Absolutely.
I think that's the case of Indiana Jones. I mean, I think he takes really cheesy, hokey material and he gets it and he elevates it and he sells it and it becomes something sublime. And I think that's what happens with Han Solo. I think it's what happens. I mean, thank God he was in the original trilogy. I don't think the original trilogy would have worked without him. I don't think it would have been anywhere near as charming or watchable as it ended up being, because I don't think the writing was necessarily, especially on A New Hope. I'm not sure the writing's great on Empire Strikes Back. That's some great writing, but selling some of those lines in A New Hope, if you had anybody else, we probably would have all left the theater laughing, and it wouldn't have been the legend that it is today. So I think a lot of those dudes, and Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill, I think they got it also. It's just of the three, I think Harrison Ford has that superstar power and just really taps into. He just knows how to make stuff work. And
and it lends itself to that anecdote that we've heard for years, where he basically told George Lucas, he was like, look, he said, you can write this shit, but you can't say it.
Exactly.
He told him, he was like, this isn't going to work. Like, you've got to give us something to work with, in here. But it is. And there are those little human moments, whether they're written or not.
Yeah.
I say it all the time when when they're raiding the detention block and he's talking on the microphone and he goes, we're all fine here. How are you? Like, it makes me laugh. I've seen it 100 times.
Yep.
Fly casual when he tells Chewie, I don't know, just fly casual. Like, those are Harrison Ford moments. Those are those things that you're talking about that add, that element to it. And for me too, just as your position on this list goes, R2's always been my favorite. Han Solo's my other. Like, it's 1A, 1B with those two. Han Solo, as a kid, Han Solo was the guy that, in theory I could be. And of course I was obsessed with Indiana Jones too. Like, he wasn't special. He didn't have powers. He wasn't a force user.
Just the guy.
He was a dude that could talk his way out of stuff. And who doesn't want to be the guy that's cool and can talk his way out of stuff?
Yeah.
And so, like, he was my go-to, to play as a kid. And, for imagination's sake, I've shown this a bunch on the podcast, but I keep it next to my computer. I've got my Return of the Jedi vintage blaster that when I went back to collecting vintage stuff, it was the first thing that I went after because I had it as a kid and I lost it. But Harrison Ford certainly is the driving force behind that. And just very quickly for you, I mentioned it before we came on that I have twin daughters, and sometime several years ago, one of them really loved Star Wars and the other one really loved Indiana Jones. And Han was one of their favorites and Indy, of course, is their other favorite. And I don't know at what point they realized they were talking about the same person. And it was just like that light bulb moment for a kid. At that time, they're probably like 8 or 9. And I'm like, that's the same actor. And they're like, are you serious?
Right.
So we have had this running joke for years. And now that they're about to be 13, they probably won't do it. But we've said that we need to have a Harrison Ford birthday party and invite all their friends to come as their favorite Harrison Ford. It'd be the weirdest thing anybody's parents would ever let their kids go to, but it would be really funny for the parents. So, but that, again, Han Solo is the man. And even this picture that you sent, this is a GIF that I use very regularly on the internet when somebody says something. That one or the Han salute, like he was made for an internet era. So
Yeah, he's got a lot of. He's very gifable or jiffable, whichever way you want.
That's right.
That.
Yeah, I don't have a definitive answer on that, but I'm told regularly I say it wrong. So
I think GIF is correct by the creator, but I always go with GIF. But
that's right. Well, and that's I think how I ended up with it too, because I always try to go with the argument like, it's not a giraffe, it's a giraffe, but apparently that argument won't hold up in court. So oh well. Well, how about we move on to number 2?
Let's do it. Dun, dun, dun.
Number 2 on your list, the man himself, Darth Vader.
Yeah. What can I say about Darth Vader except just and the reason I picked this image is because this sort of harkens back to the Ralph McQuarrie concept art version of him. And I think sort of what I'm driving at here is just that this is the best designed villain of all time. I mean,
absolutely.
I'm hard pressed to even entertain anybody's argument about any. I just don't even know who they would pose as an argument. But this is just the best design I can think of for a villain. It's part skull, it's part samurai warrior, it's all technological terror. And so I love that. I just kind of wanted to harken back to Ralph McQuarrie a little bit with my image choice. But, I love them all. I love dusty, matte finish helmet of New Hope. I love the glossier helmets of Empire and Jedi. I love it all. It's a classic villain. He's hard to beat for, being an iconic movie character of any sort. So yeah, for me, it's just like, you can't talk about Star Wars without talking about Han Solo and talking about Darth Vader.
I agree completely. And you're speaking my love language when you sent these pictures and it was this Vader. And I was like, oh, it's McQuarrie Vader and it's Rebels Vader, which is even better because I love Rebels. And I gush all the time about how, to me, Star Wars Rebels is some of the best Star Wars storytelling in the Disney era, if not overall. Like the arcs that they go through, it really is something that I love. And to not only love the storytelling and what they did with the show, but so much of that show is driven by McQuarrie art.
Concept, a lot of it.
Concept artist Chewbacca is Zeb, and the taller, leaner stormtroopers, the thin, skinny lightsabers, like all of that stuff, is just perfect to me. But to have Vader, and you're right, and there's been, you could take a picture of Darth Vader around the world, and you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who didn't know who it was.
Although, funny story, we have a company in India that we use to silhouette our imagery, to like cut them out from the background, just to sort of take that off of our plate when we're making cards at work. And we sent something. It was an image of, I think it was from A New Hope. I think it's Darth Vader in the cockpit of his TIE fighter as he's chasing down Luke in the trench there. And we sent that just to sort of silhouette cut out Darth Vader from the cockpit. And it's really dark and shadowy, so you can't really see exactly where the boundaries of shapes are, and it's a little bit confusing. And they sent back something that they had cut out like sort of like where the eyebrow pieces of his helmet are, and just sort of like nothing where the head part is. And I just thought, I guess not everybody knows exactly what Darth Vader looks like, because they didn't realize that he had more head than this.
That's right. Well, and if we needed further proof that he works as a scary guy, if you get the Spaceballs version of Lord Helmet where you only get the top half, that's not scary at all. So it is a complete package situation. But I do think, there have been, there's a million lists all over the internet of, AFI's greatest movie villains of all time, or, something like that. He's the top of those lists. Like he's always. And
back to sort of asking how I came to Star Wars, and then asking about how I, draw Star Wars stuff. Like I can remember I had a drawing book that was like how to draw 50 villains, monsters, and something or other. I can't remember who put it together. I feel bad about that, but I was a little kid when I had this book, and one of the pages in there is how to draw Darth Vader. So, and I remember like, okay, this is cool. I want to draw this. And I think it was before I even quite knew, or quite understood who Darth Vader was, or how he fit into what were going to become some of my favorite movies of all time. So
absolutely,
that's the level of sort of iconography that we're dealing with here, where I just saw him sort of out of context in a drawing book and thought, whoa, that's cool. I want to learn how to draw that. And that's something about that just kind of stirs me in my soul. And
as well it should. And he's terrifying. Like as a kid, talking about, you talk about Return of the Jedi when we were kids and having those, the creatures and the monsters, and Jabba was scary. Like the first time I saw A New Hope and he comes into the, into the Tantive 4 and he's, flinging people around and holding, what's his name up by the neck against the, that was scary. And that voice and the presence, and he's big because David Prowse was big. Like it is one of those just truly powerful moments of, wow, this is a guy not to be messed with, for sure.
For sure. And I don't want us to move off this slide without, of course, doing a hat tip to James Earl Jones, who, that voice is just inseparable from Darth Vader. And, I often tried to imitate it as a teenager, and I was probably horrible.
As we all did.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So that's, very much part of the allure of Darth Vader is the voice acting as well.
Yes. And, that's only further cemented also by when you go back and you find those clips on YouTube where they're still using David Prowse's voice before it's voiced over. And that kind of, can't remember if he was Welsh, but like that accent and that high pitch, and like it doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
God bless him. I love what he did for this character.
But we couldn't have left that in. It just wouldn't have worked.
No, it wouldn't have been the same. Well, let's get to number one. And in the number one spot, again, not to be argued with, the man himself, as we talked at the top of the show, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So it feels like I was definitely being a shill for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show and doing this. You'd started off the hour with a news update about the show, and then this is my number one pick. But I've always loved Ben Kenobi. And I picked this image because where some of the other ones we're really kind of talking about the portrayal of the character as much as we are about the character specifically with Darth Vader and Han Solo. We're talking about, Harrison Ford, really. I'm not necessarily talking about Alec Guinness. I'm not necessarily talking about Ewan McGregor, although both of them did great jobs portraying this character. I think Ewan McGregor was the best thing about the prequels.
Absolutely.
Several fine actors in that, but, you wouldn't know it necessarily watching the movies, except Ewan McGregor stands out as holding his own against all the CGI and the green screens and the, sort of strange dialogue and all that. He does a remarkable job. He acquits himself very well. So we could talk about that, but really it's more just the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi that I find so fascinating, and I'm so looking forward to the TV show. Not TV show, the Disney Plus show. I'm dating myself a little bit, calling it television, but and I have extensive headcanon on Ben Kenobi. To me, he's obviously he's on the good guy side, but I find him so manipulative. And so, he plays people to get his way. He's playing chess with people, and which is not necessarily admirable. So you sort of have this noble figure that as a kid, I was like, oh, okay, he's like the goodest of good guys, he's, just noble Ben Kenobi. And then as I got older and sort of thought about the lies he tells to Skywalker to get him to do what he needs him to, what he has to do, basically. But he doesn't go about it the most honest and direct way. And then you start thinking, man, what else does he sort of lie about? This seems to be like this guy's tactic, is I'm just going to sort of manipulate people and try to steer the situation in the way that I want it or need it to go. And I find that just so fascinating. It's a darker sort of interpretation of Obi-Wan Kenobi than I've really seen explored in too much depth. I haven't read everything, but certainly in the movies, we don't necessarily get that. Exactly. You must do what you feel is right, of course. It's like the major guilt trip of that, right? It's like, you don't have to, but
if you want to, fine.
I love that. And I think there's just a lot of depth there. And then, having him portrayed by two outstanding actors in two different trilogies that adds to it for sure. Yeah, for me, I just have always kind of been, for whatever reason, fixated on Obi-Wan Kenobi. Our first, my mom and dad would be, I would be remiss if I left this out if they watch this. My first email address as a kid, when we, that's how old I am. Like email was like a new thing when I was.
That's right. I'm with you.
And my first email address was Kenobi@route66.com. Route 66, our, local provider in Albuquerque, Mexico. I didn't even have like a Gmail or a Yahoo or anything like that. And so for some reason, whatever 14-year-old me or however old I was picked Kenobi as my email handle. Very professional.
I support that completely.
So, when I sort of remember those things and understand that, I think, number one spot for me has to go to Ben Kenobi. And I also love the name Ben Kenobi as opposed to Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm sort of sad that went away. Like I wish that in the prequels, maybe we had gotten some more of how did he come to be called Ben. Maybe we'll get that in the Disney Plus series.
That's right. We'll get a good piece of expository dialogue where they just, one time I
love just the ordinary, like Joe Kenobi, Ben Kenobi. Like you've got all these, and Luke too, but you have all these bizarre sort of alien names, and you've got Ben, Luke,
Ben.
Yeah, I love that.
That's right. The normal names in Star Wars. Well, he's absolutely deserving of a number one spot. And like we said, this isn't a favorite because so many can be favorite, but we had to start somewhere and end somewhere. Sure. So I admire you for taking on that challenge. And I agree, of course, with everybody in your list. And I have a couple of, I usually throw these in there. Well, I call them the bonuses.
Bonus edition. All right.
That's right. A couple to add in that weren't in your list, but stood out for me. And the first one that I have is Princess Leia.
Absolutely.
And especially, and I picked this image because this is what we get up top when we first see Star Wars. And we get Leia as her badass self. Like she's taking control. She's got these Death Star plans. She's got a mission. She's got a gun. She takes out a couple of troopers. But as we talked about, for Vader being as imposing as he was, as scary as he was, she wasn't playing. Like she was just like, "Oh yeah, you again." Like she
wasn't scared by him at all. She gave him sass right back to his face with him standing.
That's right. There was a boldness there that I certainly admired and even recognized, even as a kid. Like, oh, she's awesome. Like she's not a damsel in distress, and she was not intended to be.
Right.
In fact, we get those early concept art Macquarie images of Luke. Starkiller was going to be a female.
Sure.
And so, to me, this is a way that they figured out how to, kind of adapt that. We're going to have a princess. She's going to be a princess, but she's not going to be the princess you expect. She's going to take charge. She's going to blow a hole in the garbage smasher and say, let's go down here. Right. You idiots aren't getting me out of here. I'll take charge. Like,
they play with it. You're right. They play with it throughout. And, especially just like think of Luke opening the detention cell, and she's just sort of like got that
sassy, like, really?
Like, she's like, aren't you a little short? She's like, delivering one-liners. She's not at all like, oh, quick, hurry, rescue me. You're right. They sort of subvert that trope of the shrinking violet damsel in distress the whole way through, and that's pretty delightful. And they did it for 1977. I think we expect that kind of subversion today as just sort of a norm, but I think that was sort of maybe a little bit more special that they were kind of doing that from the very beginning, that they didn't really play into the damsel in distress from the get-go.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that they carry that through. Excuse me. They carry that through all the way to the end. She becomes a general, and they kind of run that storyline of like, she didn't complete her Jedi training because she felt this was where she needed to be. And, when they talk in Last Jedi or in Force Awakens about her and Han, when they lost Ben, they both went back to the only thing they knew. He went back to being a scoundrel. She went back to being a general. But I love the line in Force Awakens at the beginning with Laura Santeca when he's talking to Poe, and he calls her the general, and he says, "General, to me, she'll always be royalty." Yes, like she's a badass princess, but she's a princess still. So I think she is a definite good add-on. I've got two more.
And
real
another
quick.
one where the actor portraying it is it's hard to separate that out when you talk about
That's right.
The sort of the lore of Carrie Fisher is a lot about, I think,
And that was her in real life. She was a pistol. She was a firecracker.
Yes.
She was
Yes.
small in stature, but big in, look, I'm going to stand up for myself. And here's the crazy stuff I've been through.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fascinating, like, my gosh, to go back and read about all the stuff that Carrie Fisher did as a writer and as a script doctor, and like the things it's mind blowing. Like she wasn't just the girl in the slave Leia bikini. Like she was a force to be reckoned with. Yeah. So that's one of my bonuses. My next one is this guy, Chewbacca.
Yeah.
I have always liked Chewbacca.
Sure.
I'm gonna tell you what changed it for me. Chewbacca was always there. He was always Han's sidekick. He was always, Han and Chewie and the whole thing. Yeah. When Solo came out, I fell in love with Chewbacca. Like the backstory, the build-in, honestly, what Jonas does as Chewbacca taking over for Peter Mayhew. Yeah. Like, I really had a newfound respect for this character coming out of that movie. And again, it's a movie that some people are like, I don't like it. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun. It's a heist movie. It's whatever. But there was something about the development of Chewbacca throughout that movie and what we get to know about him. And, the little one-liners. Again, you don't understand him. He speaks, Kashyyykian, Wookiee, whatever. Right. But you feel like and you feel like you get it. And the
he can pull a look where there's, like a sort of a head tilt or whatever, he's like kind of not buying into Han's bullshit sometimes. Or,
yes.
You love those moments. And
and like the moments in, especially in New Hope, he's sitting back there at the, when they're at the table and he's on the ship and he just throws his hands back like, I won. Yeah. What are you going to do about it?
That's right. Yeah, the body language from both those actors, Peter Mayhew and now Eunice. Butcher the last name, so I won't even do that. And what I love about that is how Eunice kind of like I just find it precious how much he loves being Chewbacca. Like he himself has almost like become Chewbacca in real life.
That's right.
He thinks like him and, just sort of reacts to the world as him. And there's something really endearing about that.
And I hope that they can get him some more stuff to do to get, to have those opportunities to do that too. I think that's amazing.
So make Solo 2.
That's right. #, make Solo 2 happen. We are fans of that here. Well, I've got one more to put in my bonus round, and we have this lady, Ahsoka Tano. Okay. Ahsoka was one of those ones that, like a lot of things in Star Wars, and as we've said a couple of times already, I didn't know I needed or I didn't know I would love.
Right.
Because my first reads on the Clone Wars was it was kind of annoying. And young Ahsoka at the beginning of the Clone Wars was very annoying.
It skews very young, I think.
And Sky Guy.
Yeah.
But by the time I got to Rebels, like I was in the tank for Ahsoka Tano because the arc that they have with her, that fight with Vader, the World Between Worlds arc, like and so then to get her in, in Mandalorian, the last few episodes of Clone Wars to see that, finalize the battle with Maul, like this is a great, great character. And this is one of those characters that as I went back and watched Clone Wars, especially, the arc when she leaves the Jedi Order, when she's falsely accused, and the Jedi don't stand up for her. Yeah. Like there's a purity in her as a Jedi. And like she says, after she leaves the Order, I'm not a Jedi. Mm-hmm. She says it in Mandalorian. She says it, at other times. But like she's the pure version of what a Jedi could be because there's principle there. Because she stands out to me as one that I don't know how much more of it we're going to get. But I hope we get some more Ahsoka somewhere along the line.
Yeah, I don't know. You wonder, like, surely you don't cast Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano only to then just abandon her. I mean, surely that's coming back in some way.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure how, but I bet we see more of her.
Absolutely. Well, we will continue to hope for that. And in the meantime, this has been an amazing list, and this has been such a fun conversation. And Brandon, I can't thank you enough for hanging out on a Sunday night.
Oh, it's a cast. I love it.
for making a drink and, for being willing to have to pick some of your favorite kids, because that was what what I do.
Sort of, I like being forced to think about that because it's too easy to just be like, I love them all,
That's right. We can all go that route, but at some point we have to make some choices. So
right.
Before we get out of here,
think about their top 7, spend a few
minutes. That's exactly right. Well, before we get out of here, is there anything that you've got coming up, whether it's at Tops, whether it's, art, anything you're working on, anything you'd like to plug? I've got your Twitter handle up here. I know that, folks would love to come follow you on Twitter, see what you're talking about. Is there anything else that you've got going on?
It's hard to say just because everything's so developmental, but definitely lots more original art on the way, including Derek Loffman, Kevin John, that everybody really likes too, as well as new artists that we're trying to get into the pipeline. So lots of stuff that we haven't seen yet. We're Bad Batch stuff coming up on the way, which we're excited about that show. I'm excited to see that show. See what I love the sort of Dirty Dozen take on Star Wars. I'm excited to see where that goes. We're looking forward to Book of Boba Fett toward the end of this year. We don't know much about it yet either. Nobody's sharing any inside baseball stuff with us on that. But as soon as we've got stuff that we're allowed to put out, that's going to be fun. Lots of good stuff on the way.
That's awesome. And I have to throw this up here real quick because I can't believe that I forgot when we were saying it about Ahsoka. We get an Ahsoka series. They told us we're getting an Ahsoka series. I completely forgot.
We did. I forgot too.
That's right.
I wonder if we'll see more Ahsoka. Yes,
that's right. I think we're going to be good on that. So,
okay.
Ahsoka series, that'll give us something to look forward to.
Well, I can't think. There's like half a dozen or maybe a full dozen new series on the way eventually.
All right. So let me ask you that. That'll be our parting question. Of all the things, they did that event on December the 10th when Kathy Kennedy came out. They talked about all the different things that we were going to get. Of the ones that clearly you and I can remember because we've already forgotten.
Right. Obviously going to leave some out here.
What would be number one on your list of all those things to look forward to?
It probably is the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, just given my fascination with that character. But a close second, I'm really intrigued about the Cassian Andor series. All of them seem promising. I know there's a lot of sort of hype and speculation about the Acolyte, just sort of, the mysteriousness of we don't quite know what that's about. So I don't know that I'm most excited for that, just simply because I don't know what it is.
Right.
But I'm super excited for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. And I love that they got, Hayden Christensen back to reprise his role as Darth Vader. I'm excited to see him, under the direction of people who like to direct actors, which I don't think necessarily George Lucas does. And I think, Hayden Christensen was one of those very fine actors who suffered from that in the prequels.
Maybe something a little more nuanced than faster and more intense.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to just sort of seeing it in the hands of the Disney Plus showrunners who've done so far just an amazing job with Mandalorian stuff. So, yeah,
absolutely. Well, this has been a true pleasure and a true blast. Thank you so much for coming on and being with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
To all of our subscribers, thank you for being with us. To our live chat folks, thank y'all for hanging out tonight, for sharing your comments and stories and taking some time out to hang out and watch the show. Audio listeners, if you haven't had a chance to catch the live show yet, come check us out. Come see us on YouTube. If you're not subscribed on YouTube, we'd love for you to subscribe. And until we get together again next Sunday night, may the force be with you always.
Thank you.